Hello and welcome to album review number 15. It's been a while. I haven't done a review in about maybe 2 or 3 months. I've rearranged my room completely. I'm actually facing the other way. Usually the camera would be just a bit there, facing us, like right now, but I've actually got my back to where the camera would be usually. I thought I would do review Third by Soft Machine today. I was gonna do a Moody Blues one next, but I just sort of spontaneously decided to do Third because I've been listening to it quite a lot recently, and I really like it. So I think I'll probably do a Moody Blues one before Christmas. I tend to listen to them around about Christmas time, so I'll probably do one of them around about Christmas. But today I'm going to do Third by Soft Machine. Third is Soft Machine's third album. Rather very imaginative title, though when the music's this unique and complex and fantastic, I suppose you don't really need a brilliant album cover or a brilliant album title. Though it's not Soft Machine's only album that does that. I think their first album was just called The Soft Machine, their second one was called Volume 2, and you had 4th, 5th, 6th. I think it was their 7th album that wasn't numbered. I think that was when they started calling them different names. So, but it doesn't matter anyway. Soft Machine. The reason that I found them was because I was sort of looking for jazz stuff a couple of years ago, and I sort of came across them and I listened to Facelift from this album. I noticed that Third seemed to be their highest ranking album. And I listened to Facelift and I couldn't quite get in it. I wasn't really a fan of this sort of jazzy stuff yet. I hadn't really got into Vandegraaff Generator at that point, and anyone who's watched any of my previous videos will know I'm a huge fan of Vandegraaff Generator now. So I gave the album a proper listen last year. I bought it, gave it a proper listen, and now I think it's one of the greatest albums ever made. The album features 4 approximately 20-minute tracks over 4 vinyl sides, so 4 songs, all about 20 minutes long each, which is interesting because the album came out in 1970, and it's strange because Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes, anyone who knows Yes will know that Tales from Topographic Oceans is 4 20-minute or so pieces, but they all have lyrics, but all of these but one are instrumental. But Tales from Topographic Oceans was criticised for being too overblown, for being self-indulgent, things like that. But Soft Machine never got any criticism. They seem to get away with it. I think the only reason is because Yes were more popular, and critics just want to criticise the more popular bands. So the fact that Yes were more popular meant that they were more open to criticism. But the fact that Soft Machine were less popular, people obviously thought, oh, it's okay when they do it. So there's some hypocrisy. Definitely some hypocrisy there in terms of the criticising of Yes and other bands like ELP, when other bands were doing just as overblown sort of self-indulgent stuff as them, but they never got any criticism. Anyway, the album, like I said, has 4 tracks. Facelift, Slightly All the Time, Moon and June, and Out Bloody Regis. At this point in the band's career, they were a 4-piece of Robert Wyatt on drums and vocals. Bass guitar was Hugh Hopper, Mike Ratledge on piano and organ, and Nick Evans on trombone, and there's some additional musicians. My personal favourite band member is Mike Ratledge because he has a very unique keyboard sound, organ. That though it is a certain organ sound, you don't really hear it very much in other prog rock albums. Like I was listening to the Strawbs today, their Hero and Heroine album, and I couldn't help but think that there was a certain song on it that sounded a bit too much like Camel. I think it was Round and Round. That, the keyboard sound on Round and Round, if you've heard it, it sounds a bit too much like Camel. I think it's a good song, but that sort of keyboard sound sounds like Camel. Strange, every prog rock band sort of has their own keyboard sound, but once you hear the organ in this, it's very much the Soft Machine Mike Ratledge sound. The first track, Facelift, is fully instrumental. It opens with about 5 minutes of just psychotic madness organ. And there's some sort of trombone and some sort of sax in there as well, a wee bit of bass, sort of introduction drums, but it's basically Mick Rattledge just going crazy with the keyboard for about 5 minutes, and I like it. It definitely sets the tone, and it's very non-compromising. That you can tell that this band was certainly not going for commercial, what was commercially valid at the time. They just did whatever they wanted to do, and whether it sold loads of copies or not obviously didn't matter very much to them. They just went out and did 20-minute jazz pieces and did whatever they wanted. But once you get all that crazy stuff out of the way, the song proper kicks in with a fantastic 7/8, or is it 7/4? I think it's 7/8. A fantastic 7/8 section of jazz that goes for a good few minutes. You've got keyboard, you've got the bass doing a brilliant rhythm, you've got the drums are going crazy, everything just sort of goes nuts in Facelift, and it sort of doesn't stop until the end of the track. The craziest part is probably the beginning of the song, but once it really kicks in and there's the manic bass line that's sort of going through it with the keyboard and the saxophone, it's tremendous. And I'd say it's really the album that really got me into jazz, because I liked jazz in smaller pieces up until then. I liked like 21st Century Schizoid Man, for example. I liked Luminol by Steven Wilson. There's some jazz in there. I liked Van der Graaf Generator, though I wouldn't really consider them a jazz band. I'd say just because they have a saxophone doesn't really make them jazz. I wouldn't consider Van der Graaf Generator a jazz band. They do have some jazz influences, but I'd say they're more their own genre, Van der Graaf Generator, to be honest. But this album, I thought, free jazz and stuff like that can be really, really good. I never really thought about it before. So like other certain albums got me into electronic, but when previously I hadn't really thought about it. The second track, Slightly All the Time, slows the pace right down, which is good, because you need a bit of a breather after Facelift, to be honest. It's much slower, it's much more relaxed, and it has a very 70s sound, if that makes sense. It just sort of sounds like the 70s. You'd sort of hear, when I hear it, I sort of picture sort of 70s TV shows. Like there was them terrible Spider-Man movies that came out in the 70s. It kind of sounds a bit like that. It's slow. It's got a really beautiful bass line as well. But it speeds up at one point, but it never really gets crazy the way Facelift does. It's a nice, much more relaxing, slower jazz piece written by Mick Rattledge, and I think it's really, really good. The third track on the album is Moon in June, and that's the only song on the album that has lyrics, and it's my personal least favourite song on the album. I don't mean to sound all prog snob pretentious here, like, oh, it has lyrics, how very conventional. No, I'm not saying that. I just personally don't think it's a particularly great song. A lot of people do really like it. I just think it's personally my least favourite. I think the album would have been fine with just the other three pieces. So I don't really have much to say about Moon in June. So I don't really listen to it. I tend to skip that song when I play it. I'd rather just listen to an hour of instrumental jazz. I'd much rather just listen to that than Moon in June. One thing about it is that I don't think it needs to be that long. The other three pieces are all 20 minutes, and I think they all sort of have a valid reason for being that long. But I personally don't think Moon in June needs to be 19-20 minutes. I think it could have been 10 maybe. But I assume they were trying to fit up the vinyl sides. But I'm personally not a big fan of Moon in June. The fourth track on the album, and the final one, is Out Bloody Regis, and this is by far my personal favourite. I love Facelift and I love Slightly All the Time, but my personal favourite is definitely Out Bloody Regis. Probably my favourite part is the first 5 minutes. It's so unexpected. When I listened to the album for the first time, I was not expecting this. Facelift, it's crazy jazz, just crazy psychotic stuff with crazy keyboards, crazy saxophone, manic bass line. The bass line of Facelift, if you've listened to it, it sort of goes like do 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 do, sort of like that. It reminds me a little bit of the bass line during the Crazy Part of After the Flood by Van de Graaff Generator. If you know the Crazy Part, you know which part I'm talking about if you listen to that song. Sort of reminds me of that. And then Slightly Other Times, really, really slow jazz. Moon and June's still jazzy, but it's more conventional because it's sung. So when Out Bloody Regis starts with 5 minutes of electronic music, I was so not expecting it. It's very early electronic. I just basically wasn't expecting Terry Riley. It sounds like a Rainbow and Curved Air, but different. It's definitely taken inspiration from that, and you can clearly see it has. And you can clearly hear when you listen to Mike Oldfield that there's definitely, he's taking inspiration from this track as well. But it's sort of, for me, if anyone can name any that came before this, then that's fine. But for me, it's the first way that electronic music was used in a proper way. And that, I mean, A Rainbow and Curved Air is really, really good. I love it, but it's just purely electronic with loads and loads of overlapped keyboards. But Out Bloody Regis, on the other hand, is mixed in with jazz. So it's an electronic jazz piece, and it sort of goes from one to the other throughout the song. The first 5 minutes is the electronic, then the next 5 minutes or so is jazz, fast-paced jazz as well. Then you get another wee electronic interlude. Then you get more jazz, a bit slower jazz this time, and then it ends with another electronic sort of wee outro. But the opening electronic piece is really, really beautiful. It's extremely uplifting, and you can hear there's some overlapping as well, but it goes really, really high. There's some really, really slow parts that sort of sound like they're played backwards, and for 1970 it is so ahead of its time. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best pieces of music I've ever heard. And then after 5 minutes of this beautiful electronic piece, you get this 15/16 jazz section that kicks in, and it is so good. You get the sax going. It never reaches the craziness of Facelift, but it's faster and more urgent than Slightly All the Time. Very, very good. Then the electronic interlude in the middle is very short. It doesn't last very long, but it is similar. Basically, the electronic parts, you get a lot of you can sort of imagine them doing this on the keyboard, so blip, 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 sort of like that. But you've also got some really high pitched stuff. There's effects on it. Without this kind of stuff, and without Morton Subbotnik and Terry Riley and pieces of music like this, you certainly wouldn't have had the VCS3 and things like that being used as anywhere near as much in Dark Side of the Moon, or I don't think it would have been as prevalent. I think you needed albums like this to really bring that stuff about. Quickly, I'll mention Morton Subbotnik. I do own 2 of his albums. I am not fans of them. I know he pretty much invented electronic music. Terry Riley made it listenable. He made it so that electronic music could actually have like a rhythm and a tune. Because Morton Subbotnik, some people may disagree, but it's just a bunch of crazy notes to me. And if you like that, that's fine. But the song doesn't have any. It doesn't have any sad parts. It doesn't have any happy parts. It doesn't have any real rhythm or melody or story to it. It doesn't have any sort of, by story I don't mean like the lyrics, I mean the song doesn't really follow anything. It's just sort of like 15 minutes of just noise, if you know what I mean. And I realised that had to happen for later electronic music to come. Like whoever invented the drums, I'm sure was just going like this at the beginning, just doing whatever just to make random sounds. But then other people came in and did all that. But Terry Riley for me made electronic music far more listenable, and he added a rhythm and a melody to it. And then Soft Machine, Mike Ratledge realized he could mix it in with other music, so you basically got electronic jazz way ahead of its time, decades ahead of its time. The stuff that comes out today that's behind the times of this stuff, it's 50 years or more ahead of its time. Out Bloody Regis, especially those first 5 minutes. The second jazz piece after the second electronic interlude is mainly played in 5/8, but I think the opening part is in 15/8. It's sort of the same part as the 15/16 part, but sort of slowed down. The 15/16 part's like do 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 do, so like that, and then it sort of ends with a wee electronic bit at the end. But all around, Third is a absolutely tremendous album, and I have listened to Volume 2 afterwards, and I didn't think it was anywhere near as good. I don't know if they'll reach that sort of thing again, though maybe I should listen to Fourth. I think maybe this is a turning point for the band, and maybe this is the turning point for the stuff that I'm more interested in. I thought Volume 2 was a bit more conventionally late 60s psychedelic, if you know what I mean. That sort of Syd Barrett-ish sort of, that sort of thing. But Third's very, very, very good, and it's one of my all-time favourite prog rock, jazz, electronic albums. So ahead of its time, and like you can tell, basically any electronic music that's popular today or has come out since definitely was thanks to, along with Terry Riley. Like I said, you can hear this piece of music is very much influenced by A Rainbow in Curved Air, but this mixes it in with other music, and it makes electronic music a bit more viable in terms of other genres. You can mix it in with others instead of just having electronic on its own, which I think is very, very interesting and very, very ahead of its time. Anyway, thanks for watching. This has been Third by Soft Machine. It's my first review in a while. Just haven't really felt like doing many videos recently, but hopefully this will be me getting back into it. Anyway, thank you for watching.